I want my purse. I want to get my purse. I want to get my purse. Amy! Don't fight, you make Amy! I want my purse! I want my purse!
In 1963, Mississippi, Aibileen Clark, a woman with a lineage of maids, is sharing her life story with an author. Having been a caretaker for 17 white children while her own was cared for by another, she currently serves the Leafolt family. Elizabeth Leafolt, the lady of the house, pays little heed to her daughter May, leaving Aibileen to shoulder most of the child-rearing responsibilities for a meager 95 cents an hour. This whole book idea starts when Skeeter Phelan returns home after graduating from college. She tried to apply for a job at an important publishing house in New York, but she was told she needed to gain experience first. So now, she applies for a position at the local newspaper and is given a job answering cleaning questions in the housewife column for $8 a week. Aibileen introduces us to her closest friend, Minny Jackson, who is employed by the Holbrooks. Hilly, the lady of the house, presides over the city's junior league and recently moved her ailing mother, Mrs. Walters, into her home. This necessitated the dismissal of her maid to accommodate Minny, whose culinary skills are unparalleled, especially her pies. Minny was a pillar of support for Aibileen when she lost her son 4 years ago. Today, Hilly is the one hosting the bridge club, so Minny and Aibileen get to gossip together in the kitchen while working. Minny tells Aibileen about Hilly's latest offense. She started putting pencil marks on the toilet paper to make sure Minny isn't using their bathroom. This is why Minny has started to carry paper of her own. Skeeter also attends the gathering, and while her friends warmly welcome her, the atmosphere becomes tense when she announces her new job and requests to interview Aibileen for her column. The tension escalates when she admits her maid quit, which is considered scandalous. At that moment, the phone rings and Aibileen picks it up. It's Celia Foote, a housewife that has been ostracized by the Socialites for having married Hilly's ex, Johnny. Since Elizabeth refuses to take the call, Celia asks Aibileen if she knows of any maid looking for a job because she needs one, but Aibileen can't help her. After the women make fun of Celia for a while, the subject changes to that of bathrooms. Hilly refuses to use Elizabeth's guest bathroom because the maid also uses it, and she thinks Elizabeth should invest in building one just for the maid. As the meeting concludes, Skeeter asks Aibileen for help with her column, which Aibileen agrees to. Skeeter apologizes for the uncomfortable bathroom discussion and inquires about Constantine, her old maid. Aibileen is taken aback when Skeeter mentions Constantine quit, as this is untrue. Before Skeeter can probe further, Elizabeth interrupts, handing Skeeter Hilly's initiative for the League newsletter. Upon returning home, Skeeter attempts to discuss Constantine with her mother, Charlotte, who refuses to answer and expresses disappointment at Skeeter's job, fearing it will hinder her chances of marriage. Skeeter brings up Constantine again during a family dinner. Later during dinner with her family, Skeeter asks about Constantine again. Her father lies, so Skeeter pushes for the truth and discovers Constantine was fired after 29 years of working there. An argument ensues, and when Charlotte refuses to accept Constantine was the one actually raised her daughter, Skeeter leaves the house while remembering how Constantine used to comfort her whenever she was upset as a teen. Inspired by these events, Skeeter decides to pen a book revealing the true lives of maids, hoping to shed light on their experiences. The next day, she visits Aibileen to seek help with her column and proposes her book idea. However, Aibileen declines, fearing the potential risks. Their conversation is interrupted when Elizabeth arrives, arguing with her husband because he isn't happy about the extra bathroom, and he ends up leaving in a huff. When May begins crying and Aibileen goes to check on her, Elizabeth tells Skeeter she can't talk to Aibileen about the letters anymore. Later that night, a tornado arrives in town. Minny is scared to go to the bathroom outside, but Hilly doesn't let her use their own toilet. However, Minny sneaks around and uses her master's bathroom anyway. Unfortunately, Hilly finds out and fires her for it. Days later, Aibileen's new outdoor bathroom is completed, and she experiences a tender moment when May refers to her as her real mom. Skeeter visits Aibileen again to request her assistance, but Aibileen declines, citing the dangers faced by her cousin for merely approaching a voting station. Despite this, Skeeter leaves her contact details with Aibileen. Later in the evening, Aibileen gets a call from Minny saying she did something awful. Hilly had told everyone in town that she was a thief, so Minny got her back with a special pie. She doesn't explain exactly what was so awful about it, but she breaks down in tears because she won't ever get a job again. Their conversation is suddenly interrupted when Minny's husband comes home and begins beating her up for losing her job. This leaves Aibileen thinking about the book, and after hearing her pastor talk about God wanting his people to be courageous, she calls Skeeter to come over and tell her some stories. Skeeter arrives, assuring Aibileen that she seeks the truth, regardless of how it portrays white people. Meanwhile, Hilly's new maid requests a loan to fund her children's education, which Hilly denies, claiming it's for her own good. Subsequently, Minny's husband forces their daughter to quit school and become a maid to help with expenses. Minny remains jobless until Aibileen suggests she approach Celia, who is unaware of Hilly's accusations against Minny. Celia, a poor housewife and expectant mother, warmly welcomes Minny and offers her a job, provided her presence is kept a secret from her husband, Johnny. At the next Junior League meeting, Hilly announces that her health initiative has been forwarded to the governor and reminds Skeeter to include it in the newsletter. Skeeter, reluctant to publish Hilly's initiative, assures her it will be done soon. Meanwhile, Aibileen's interviews progress, touching on Elizabeth's shortcomings as a mother. Minny stumbles upon them and initially scolds them for the risky endeavor, but quickly changes her mind and begins sharing her own stories, promising to persuade other maids to contribute. On a double date arranged by Hilly, Skeeter meets Stuart. However, his unpleasant behavior prompts Skeeter to leave prematurely. Concurrently, Minny and Celia form a bond, with Celia treating Minny with respect and inviting her to join her for lunch. Skeeter receives feedback from her editor that she needs testimonies from at least a dozen maids for her book to be considered for publication. Despite their efforts, Aibileen and Minny struggle to find willing participants. Minny suggests using her stories and attributing them to other maids, but Skeeter is hesitant. To persuade her, Aibileen shares the tragic story of her son's death, viewing the book as a means to find closure. Stuart later apologizes to Skeeter for his behavior, explaining that he was still reeling from a recent breakup and was pressured into the date by Hilly. Skeeter's candid response intrigues him, and they agree to another date, which goes well. Stuart admires Skeeter's intellect and confesses to reading her newspaper columns, marking the beginning of their relationship. When Skeeter finally works on the newsletter, she mischievously alters some words in her article, resulting in Hilly's coat drive being published as a toilet drive, leading to a yard full of discarded toilets. Amidst this, the fight for equality, led by activist Medgar Wiley Evers, becomes a prominent topic on television. However, Charlotte forbids anyone in her house from watching his speech. The situation escalates when Evers is murdered, causing Aibileen to seek refuge at Minny's for the night. Despite their fear, they resolve to continue working on the book cautiously. The following day, Minny discovers Celia bleeding due to a miscarriage. Minny comforts her as Celia reveals her fear of her husband leaving her due to her recurrent miscarriages. Later, Celia buries the baby in the garden under a plant, as she had done with the others. Meanwhile, Hilly's maid is arrested for attempting to pawn a ring she found while cleaning, which sparks outrage among the maids. When Skeeter visits Aibileen, she is surprised to find numerous maids willing to share their stories, spurred by the morning's arrest. The maids share heart-wrenching stories of mistreatment, with the most poignant being the realization that the children they raised often grow up to mirror their parents' prejudices. Celia, eager to fit in, attempts to join the bridge club party, even bringing a pie. However, she is ignored and leaves in tears. Minny admonishes her for seeking approval from such people and clarifies the misunderstanding about Celia's relationship with Johnny. Celia, however, misinterprets this and decides to clarify matters at the benefit event. Celia also tends to Minny's wounds, suspecting they were inflicted by her husband, and advises Minny to leave him. Minny, however, is concerned about her children. The assassination of Kennedy heightens Aibileen's fear of being discovered. Minny reveals her act of revenge against Hilly, a pie made with her own human waste, which she believes will deter Hilly from exposing them. At the charity event, Celia and Johnny's arrival unsettles the socialites. A drunken Celia attempts to clarify the misunderstanding about her relationship with Johnny, causing a scene and resulting in her vomiting on the floor. Mrs. Walters, who had bid for Minnie's chocolate pie using Hilly's name, takes the pie home, much to Hilly's chagrin. Celia contemplates leaving Johnny, believing she doesn't fit into his world. However, Minnie convinces her to stay, arguing that leaving would mean Hilly's manipulations had succeeded. Skeeter, nearing the completion of her book, presses her mother for the truth about Constantine. Charlotte reveals that Constantine was dismissed after her daughter, Rachel, caused a scene at a luncheon. Skeeter visits Constantine's abandoned house to write her final story and sends the completed book to her editor. The book, published anonymously, becomes a success. Mrs. Walters, recognizing the pie story, finds it amusing and urges Hilly to read it. Skeeter's triumph is short-lived as Stuart ends their relationship upon learning she authored the book, accusing her of selfishness. Hilly, having read the book, attempts to quell rumors about the stories originating from their town. Hilly confronts Skeeter, threatening legal action. However, Skeeter counters that Hilly would have to publicly admit to eating the infamous pie. Charlotte defends Skeeter and expels Hilly from their home, expressing pride in Skeeter's courage and congratulating her on her new job. Meanwhile, Johnny thanks Minny for supporting Celia through her miscarriages. He offers Minny a permanent position in their household, which she accepts. This gives Minny the courage to leave her abusive husband. At church, Minny and Aibileen receive a standing ovation and a signed copy of the book as a token of gratitude. Skeeter, feeling guilty about the potential repercussions for Aibileen and Minny, considers declining the job offer in New York. However, they persuade her to seize the opportunity and improve her life. Aibileen returns home to find Hilly accusing her of theft. Despite the accusation being false, Elizabeth dismisses Aibileen. Aibileen confronts Hilly, reducing her to tears, and leaves despite May's pleas. Aibileen takes solace in the positive impact she has had on her community.